Run It Studios is the home of the Run Radio podcast and runradio.net, a podcast and station about the relentless, resilient, and innovative types, inspiring strides in life, business, and beyond. Welcome back to the Run Radio podcast. My name's Trina Wilcox, and my guest today, everything she does aligns with resilience, tenacity, taking better care of yourself, and we're going to get into that. I welcome Cara, Michele, Nether with Strength, Vitality, Wellness. Welcome.
Yeah. Hey, Trina, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. We got connected through Shelly Dryman. Her podcast is Empower Her Wellness. And she said, you ought to talk to her. And so here we are.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thanks so much.
So take me back to what started your journey on everything you do today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am surrounded by really powerful go-getter women. Ever since I've been little, my mom and watching my grandmother and grandmothers and all my aunts. And I just remember watching how much they gave all the time.
Yeah.
You're shaking your head. You know what I mean, right? Like, it's just innate in us, and I think society tells us that that's part of our role is to take care of everyone, right? And so my mom is the oldest girl of 7 children, and my grandmother, her mom, lived with us when from the time I was about 5 or so, and so our house was the hub for holidays, right? And so a couple times a year, everybody would flood in, all my aunts and uncles with their spouses and kids. And if you've ever thrown a big gathering, you know how it goes, right? The laundry, the shopping, the preparing the house, all that stuff starts, sometimes a few weeks ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
And of course, my mom, she was a full-time, she worked full-time. She had 2 kids, taking care of her mom, her husband, but all of those things had to keep going while she's doing all this other stuff. And I know that as a woman now myself, I understand what she was doing. But at the time, Trina, man, I hated seeing her so tired and so worn out and not really taking care of herself while she was taking care of others.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just having a few people over is one thing, but you're right. There's so many things to make it happen that we don't always think about. And that wears on a person. I mean, you're going to work, you're doing mental work, physical work, and it all gets tiresome.
Sure does.
So we need to probably what you're going to talk about, learn how to do the resting so we can give more and learn how to build up that strength. So what did you start figuring out and when?
Well, for sure, the first thing is that she and all the other powerful women in my life, they were always going to do those things.
Yeah.
They weren't going to not share their love and caring in these ways, right?
Mhm.
So, sometimes you'll hear health professionals telling folks, to take it easy, don't do this, don't do that, but it's hard to say to someone, don't make that extra meal for somebody who has a special diet or this, that, and the other. So, I've given up that a long time ago. I've been in taking care of women in my women's health focused practice for 20 years now. And so telling folks not to do things is not really it. What I think is missing the most, look, I work with a ton of intelligent, smart women who are running companies and running families and running organizations and taking care of a lot of things. And they're paying attention. They know they need to take care of themselves. So it's never the issue of not knowing what to do for ourselves. It's really making that leap over to doing it consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that I think is missing. There's always this hit or miss that happens because life is full. We got a lot going on. I get it. But what happens is we end up giving from an empty battery.
Mm-hmm.
We wake up tired, worn out, didn't sleep well. Sometimes we're having digestive issues. Sometimes we're having menopause symptoms. All kinds of things are happening in our bodies. but we don't really understand what those signs and signals mean,
Yeah.
much less what to do about them. What's the body really asking for? And then how to create a routine that is consistent and easy for us to access that actually gives our body what it needs so we can kind of eliminate a lot of those symptoms and then have the mental and physical energy that we need in order to take care of all the important people and projects in our life. And, that's what I'm passionate about these days.
You made an excellent point. Just telling someone not to do it is not going to be the way. And then that ends up, they sacrifice, they're going to do it anyway, and then put the taking care of themselves off to the side. So if you can show them how to manage it better so they can do both, I think you've got a better chance of having a happier, healthier human.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's the thing is that a lot of clients again they're just running. Like they
Yeah.
wake up and the day is off, right? They get in late at night. There's still people asking, needing all of those things, and then they try to shut their brain off by just go to sleep, and it doesn't. So it's this big cycle, right? And because it's kind of like we're on this Ferris wheel that never ends, we think that it's all way too complicated for us to try to figure out for ourselves. It's going to take too much time. It's going to take too much energy. I don't have the room for it. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to, I'll figure it out some other time. I'll do it later, is what I hear a lot.
Yeah.
But my passion, um, Trina, is to show women that it doesn't need to be so big, so complicated. Self-care all we need is a little bit of time for ourselves to try to just create an environment so that we can actually have a little space
Mhm.
that's dedicated to whatever that self-care practice is, and just make sure we have that space consistently. That's my job. That's my mission these days, is to show women that self-care. Now, I know, look, you open up a magazine, you turn on a podcast, you watch the TV show, whatever it is, and everybody's telling you four different ways to do the same thing, and you're trying to figure out which one's for me. Are they talking to me? How do I get? It's crazy.
Yeah.
The health and wellness field has gotten really complicated, and I get it. I get it.
Yes. Yes. It's something I've also always been passionate about. And I'm almost to the point some days I'm just like, well, read that article. It's going to be contradicted tomorrow. It just gets frustrating. And then there's also a certain amount of women, I mean, women and men, but I feel like women more that when they do decide to go to the doctor, they're not being heard.
Yes.
What kind of feedback have you gotten about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear this every day with the women that I see in my practice. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating for them. I feel sad. Um, I feel disappointed in the practitioners. I'm sorry that these folks have taken the time out of their day to go reach out for help, and they don't. Well, they told me that my blood work looks good, Cara Michelle. I hear that all the time, but I'm just not sleeping. I just don't feel right. I
Yes.
hear it all the time. And so, Trina, what I've observed and what I've learned over these past 20 years is that there are some foundations to health and wellness,
Okay.
meaning that there are some basic principles. Here's the thing, we all know about them already, right?
Mhm.
So it's not a surprise. But if we don't have some rhythm with these seven, we're going to have a lot of symptoms. We're going to have a lot of concerns, right?
Okay.
So basic things. If you and I had a clipboard, we did a little survey, we walked to the corner and we stopped a bunch of women. We said, tell me the things you know you need to do for yourself. We get the same answers every time. They say, I know I need to exercise a little more. I know I need to get better sleep. I know that I probably should drink more water. I know that I should probably eat better, right? There's some basics that we all know. And I
Mhm.
love that because we don't need to find the new, the unique, the exotic, right?
Right.
We just need to stick with the foundations. And what I've learned over the years is that most symptoms that folks are having, I'm counting somewhere around 90% of the symptoms and signs and symptoms, like your body is telling you something, and really that's what it is, right? Like sometimes people get into a conversation that their body's against them because their back still hurts or they're not sleeping
Right.
well. But I want to promise all the listeners that that is not true. Actually, your body is trying to do everything it can to take care of you, right? The problem is that we just don't understand what those signs and symptoms are. When you're having back pain, we don't really understand what the body is asking for.
Hmm.
And you're having headaches regularly, or you're having pain in your wrist or your shoulder. We don't know what it's asking for. And what I've learned, what my clinical experience has taught me, is that it's asking for one or more of those seven foundations of health.
Wow. How do you work with clients to get to the bottom of things?
Sure, the only thing we need to do is put on our investigator's hat,
Okay.
right? What does that mean? We have to slow down and understand what environment. You see, I think that self care is a cellular game.
How
What
so?
do I mean by that? We have 30, I think 35 trillion with a T, trillion cells in our body, and they make up all of our tissue. They make up our skin, our eyeballs, they make up our toenails, the lining of our intestines, everything, right? And there's an environment that those cells need. Without that environment, they're not going to operate at optimal levels. And because those cells come together to make our heart, those cells come together to make our brain, to make our nervous system, to make our hormonal system, right? If those cells are not getting what they need, then they're going to operate at subpar levels, which means those organs are going to operate at subpar level, which means that we're going to feel subpar,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So what we want to do is understand what's the appropriate environment for those cells. And once we're able to give them what they need, they will operate at a high level and we will feel good.
Do you have a checklist that you usually start with or a intake form that you usually go over with new clients?
Absolutely. Yeah, I see people in person in my office as well as people online. And yes, that's the first thing we need to do. We need to understand what is our relationship with these seven, right? So we talked about exercise and stretching and water. How about your digestive system? What are you noticing there? How about your
Hmm.
blood sugar? Is that bouncing up and down throughout the day, right? Once we have a sense of what your relationship is with those seven foundations of health and wellness, we can often pin down what might be missing in that environment that we're trying to create for those cells, and then we can start to figure out a plan of action that can start to remedy that, fill in some of the gaps. But here's the thing, oftentimes a practitioner will kind of do an assessment and then they give you a laundry list of things to do,
Yeah.
right? But we've already said that the clientele that I'm working with, and most women, between the ages of 45 and 65, that our lives are busy, right? So what are you going to do with this laundry list? You're going to
There's
look
more
at
on
it,
your
right? You're going to take a peek, right? And you're like, okay, I'll get to that later. And it goes on the
yeah.
table
Yeah.
and that's it, right? So I have learned that it's really important to integrate this cellular health idea with scientifically proven habit creation practices. What are the behavior change practices that are scientifically proven to help us integrate new ideas and new practices? So if we put these two together, then we have what I call the strength and vitality accelerator, right? So that allows us to slowly gain some confidence, some momentum, some practice with these foundations, and then very very quickly we're able to start to see some results from that.
Well, that was my next question. About how long does it usually take once they come in? You've gone through that About how long does it take for you to kind of pin down what's causing the problem, the culprits?
Well, we can get a general idea, within minutes,
Awesome. Yeah, great.
right? So here's an example. Let's take hydration.
Mhm.
A lot of times clients will come in and they'll say, I drink a lot of water, Carmichelle. And I say, great. Let's quantify that, right? And this is data is our friend.
Yeah,
Real data is our friend because if we're guessing, we got to know that we're not going to guess correctly, right? If you ask, everybody just stop for a second and think back, like what you have for breakfast 2 days ago,
yeah, no,
right? It's tough. How
yeah,
much was it? All of it's hard. We're just pulling numbers out of the air, right? So I really encourage folks to track their information so that they know for sure. But those first couple consultations, after the consultation, we have our initial sessions. We really try to dig in, right? So if I say, what's your typical amount of water a person's drinking, they quantified it as good. I drink a lot of water, but I want numbers. That person might say, well, I'm about 40 ounces a day. Okay, great. Are you drinking anything else? Tea, sodas, anything? No, no, pretty much just water. And they feel really happy about that, right?
right,
And it is good that you're drinking 40 ounces of water. But the science says, and anecdotal evidence from all the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I've worked with over the years says that the effective dose, remember, the point of self-care is to generate mental and physical energy because that's really what most women are looking for, right? Like it only matters if you're not feeling well or you're not sleeping well or you have back pain because it keeps you from being able to do the important stuff in life, right?
right.
Yeah. So what we have to understand is what is the effective dose of these seven foundations, let's say hydration, that's actually going to generate mental and physical energy for me.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 40 ounces for a person, let's take myself, I weigh about 175. I'm 46 years 56 years old. I'm about 5'4", I weigh about 175 or so, right? So the science says, and anecdotal evidence from working with hundreds of clients say, we want to be somewhere in the range of half your body weight in ounces or around 100 ounces a day.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the big gap between where this person is
Right.
and where this person is going to start to notice real benefits from the water,
Okay.
right? So by just going through this assessment, we start to identify that hydration might be part of the reason that this person is not sleeping well. People really don't understand how one hydration is going to play into the multiple symptoms that they have. If for let's take myself. If I have a couple days that I'm not sleeping well, let's say that my knees are hurting me. I'm having trouble. I'm feeling a little more brain fog. I don't feel quite as sharp mentally, right? That one of the first things I'm going to ask myself is how have I been doing with my water,
Mm.
right? Because being dehydrated is a great way to increase inflammation in the body.
Hmm.
And if you are having a lot of systemic inflammation, you're going to have joint pain. You're going to have brain fog, right? You're not going to be able to get your nervous system to settle down at night so that you can slip into deep and REM sleep. You see?
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So by going through this assessment and checking in with each one of the seven foundations, we can start to really zero in very quickly. But the key, the important part is now what do you do with that information?
Uh-huh.
I have a very busy client in front of me, right?
Mhm.
So if I say, we need to make up, I need you to be closer to 100 ounces a day, and we need to make up that 60 ounces by next week,
Right.
that, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I say shame on me and any practitioner that pushes a client like that, right?
Right.
Because what's going to happen is we're going to lose out Our physical body is not going to be able to handle that kind of jump in liquid.
Yeah.
Kidneys are not going to be able to keep up. So we're going to be running to the bathroom. We're not going to, our stomach's not going to feel well. And we're going to be breaking up the day, an already busy day, pulling off the highway to go use the restroom, or shooting out of a busy meeting to go use the restroom, right? And even more importantly, mentally, we're going to damage our connection with this practice of being more hydrated. Because once we start to have this show, once the practice starts to show up as a problem, we don't want to do it anymore,
Hmm.
right? We mentally are just going to check out from it. So this is where the behavior change practices come into play.
Hmm.
I've read so many books and attended seminars and learned so much about behavior change. Um, there's a great book. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Small Practices, Small Habits, I think it is. Small,
Hmm.
Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg. If anybody has a chance, they want to pick that up. And they always talk about small shifts at a time.
Yeah.
So I would prefer for this client to go to 45 or 48 ounces of water
Yeah.
and do that for this next coming week. And then go back and bring it up 4 more ounces or 8 ounces and stay with that number for a number of
Mhm.
days. A couple things happen when we approach our self-care in this manner, Trina. We have the opportunity to kind of figure out, how do we create an environment where we're drinking this amount of water regularly without a lot of pressure? You see, we have to figure out, am I going to drink out of this water bottle? Am I going to keep filling this one up? Or do I want to have 4 water bottles on my desk and I move through them that way?
Hmm.
Do I like cold water? Do I want room temperature water? Do I want the sparkling water?
Yeah.
What about when I get in the car? Do I have water in the car, or am I going to take these bottles with me? See, there's a lot of what I call mechanics
Hmm.
that we have to figure out. We have to create an environment that makes it easy to then drink that amount of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always skip over that part. We get the idea, I want to do something, and
Yeah.
we know what the outcome is that we want,
But
but
execution.
how to actually create the environment so that it's easy to do it,
Yeah.
is it gets missed, right?
Yeah.
So we want to, so if we take our time, we get to create that environment without a lot of pressure, because the person's already been drinking 40 ounces and we just bumped it up a little bit. So it's no big deal. They can do that easily,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And yet their kidneys, their body, the cells in their body are getting accustomed to just a little bit more, right? The second thing that happens is they start to see themselves as a winner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're making changes,
Yeah.
right? They're small changes nonetheless. So they start to see themselves as a person who can now actually do better for themselves,
Hmm.
right? And so that goes a long way. They actually get to check off the box that they're drinking this 45 ounces or 48 ounce, whatever it is. They get to say yes, and it wasn't a strain.
That's a great, great piece of advice. I also like something you say, that a lot of times people fall into this is just the way my body is, and accept the way things are happening. And I also think there's a struggle with people if they've got a chronic condition, that's the first thing that gets blamed when something new comes up and you're bringing it to your doctor's attention, or you're trying to get some help with that. Well, it's just that. And it's not. So, what kind of advice do you have for trying to admit to yourself that it doesn't have to be okay with that, and that there are things, that you can do to bring this to light and get the help that you need?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. I want to answer that question in two parts.
Okay.
The first part is that I would like, I hate that I have to say this, but I believe it's the truth, and I think there's a lot of evidence to this. That our medical system is not our friend. There are a lot of great practitioners within that medical system that are on your side,
Yeah.
but the medical system itself is not. And we just need to know that, accept it, and when we are in it, where we're in the system, We have to understand that that the information that's coming at us is not necessarily designed to support the life that we are trying to have for ourselves,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
The second part of this, the way I want to answer your question is that I just know for sure that we have more authority over our self care, how we feel every day, than we want to give ourselves credit for.
Okay.
There are more things that we can have control over than there are things that we do not. There are some things that we don't have control over. I don't have any control over we just had a hurricane move through here. I don't have any control over that.
Mhm.
I have a neighbor, a friend of mine has a neighbor who is kind of fussy. We don't have any control over that,
Right.
right? But I do. I have a lot of control over whether or not my body is hydrated. I have control over what I put on my plate every day, right? I have control over the people that I spend time with, right? We have a lot
Right.
of control. And
Mhm.
if we own that, that's the piece that I think sometimes gets a little bit slippery because we're so busy,
Right.
right? Like I think that sometimes, you know, the desire to have more and do more, which we all want I'm not against that, right? Like we all want to prosper, but we have to remember that without a solid mind and body, enjoying those things is almost impossible.
Yeah, for sure.
Like everything that we're trying to do and create in our lives is comes off the back of our health and wellness.
I think you brought up a very important point, and that is how frustrating it is with the medical system when you're trying and wanting to feel good and be happy and take care of yourself. What are your top recommendations for people who almost get to the point, or maybe they have got to the point where they're like, I'm done with it, I'm not doing it? How do you encourage the resilience and tenacity to stick with it and that they're worth taking care of?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, look, I get it. I had a fairly significant medical issue pop up in 2020 myself. I've always been a person that take decent care of myself, or at least I thought, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I've never been a practitioner who said do this and then I don't, and then I do something different, right? Um, but there was a lot of women who are being affected by thyroid concerns, right? It is rampant. It's big in its population, and stress can be a big component of that, right? And so I entered into the medical system, and really found it to be extremely frustrating.
yeah,
Even though I had some good doctors that were interested in listening to me and hearing what my goals were for myself, and I feel very fortunate and lucky. There were some other practitioners that weren't interested in hearing what it is I had to say and how I wanted to live my life, right? Their job was really just to bring those numbers into a range, and that's the only thing that they cared about.
yep, yep,
You're shaking your
yeah,
head.
yeah.
Yeah, right. They didn't care that other symptoms showed up. They didn't care that I wasn't sleeping well. They didn't care that it caused other problems, whatever it might be. Right.
Mhm,
The
mhm,
numbers are in range. Okay, great. I think we're good. Thank you for coming in.
mhm, mhm.
And so, what I want to encourage women to do is to do the very best for themselves that they can themselves.
Right, right.
To actually step into their strength. So having some rhythm and working on getting more and more and more comfortable and confident with having these 7 foundations: exercise and stretching, being fully hydrated, getting good sleep, understanding what that means for them. That means you have to maybe have a period of time where you're getting more sleep so that you can actually see, how do
Mhm,
I feel when I have more sleep? How is my joint pain? How is my headaches? How are my back pain? How am I interacting with people when I have better sleep or more hydration or I exercise more? Um, because then you know for sure that that you've created a good environment for your cells. Without that, it's kind of like having trying to jump a car, going to someone else who's trying to jump your car, and you only have a small amount in your battery.
Yeah.
It's tricky. So if we can fill our batteries up ourselves as best we can, then whatever the interventions are, you'll need less of it, right, in order to get things moving in a good direction. The symptoms won't bother you as much. If you need surgery, you'll bounce back better because your body is actually strong when you got started.
All right. This has been great. I hope you'll come back and talk some more. Before we close, tell people exactly what you can help them with and how they can connect with you.
Thank you. Yes. So, if folks are in the Baltimore area and they want to come in, I've been a licensed acupuncturist and functional nutrition counselor and personal trainer for 20 years. So, I specialize in helping women between the ages of 45 and 65 with any kind of pain and discomfort they have here in the office using a variety of modalities here in the office. My pride and joy these days is the Strength and Vitality Accelerator. And I made mention of that before. This is a program that helps women slowly start to create an environment where they can practice accessing those seven foundations. It's an opportunity to have lots of coaching, to work with other women who are like-minded, who are really ready to make changes for themselves, and be able to slowly not interfere with all the busyness that they have going on, but slowly start to gain more confidence and struggle less with having self-care consistency in their lives.
All right. And the website?
The website is strengthvitalitywellness.com.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. You can link over and watch on all platforms, listen to from runradio.net.